recent changes to the non-dom rules mean that Brits living abroad are no longer liable to inheritance tax to HMRC. Let's dive into more detail. What has changed to the non-dom rules? From the 6th of April 2025, the current rules for taxation of non-UK domiciled individuals will end. The whole concept of domicile as being the relevant connecting factor to the UK tax system will instead be replaced by one based on residency. The reason that the government have said that they have made this change is to remove the unfairness in the taxation system. This change to a residency-based system has a knock-on positive impact to British citizens who have retired abroad, and particularly those people who are worried about their UK inheritance tax liability despite no longer being a UK tax resident. To understand this more, let's have a look at what the whole concept of domicile means. What does your domicile mean? In UK law, domicile refers to a person's permanent legal home or country of origin. It's distinct from residency, as domicile is more about the longer term, a permanent connection to a particular country, and it's an important factor in several legal matters, such as taxation. Domicile status impacts your inheritance tax liability as well as other tax obligations. For example, UK citizens who are domiciled in the UK are liable to inheritance tax on not only their UK but also their worldwide assets, while those who are non-domiciled may only be liable to taxation on their UK-based assets. Your domicile influences which country's laws determine your will, and in turn the inheritance that you pay on your estate upon your death. UK law generally applies to a person if they are deemed to be domicile in the UK when they die, irrespective of where they are actually resident. Domicile versus residency. So in case this is not clear from what I've gone through already, domicile is where you consider to be your permanent home, the country where you have your permanent residence. And residency simply refers to the country that you happen to live in at a particular time. You can be resident in a particular country without being domiciled there. For example, somebody living in the UK but intending at some point to return to their home country may be considered to be resident in the UK but not domiciled. Who decides if I qualify as a non-dom? Up until now, the determination of whether you are considered domicile or non-domiciled in the UK is determined by HMRC. And if you decide that you are non-dom for UK taxation purposes, the HMRC applies a set of tests to you. I won't go through them in detail, but they ask a set of questions to determine if you really are non-dom or not while still living in the UK. Now, up until now, as a Brit living in another country, you could reasonably assume that you would be considered non-dom for IHT purposes, but the trouble was that you could not be 100% sure. And after your death, your executors of your will could often end up in a lengthy debate and discussion and argument with HMRC. The great news is that this ambiguity and concern for British residents living abroad has all gone away because domicile has now been replaced by a residency system. What does this mean in practice? After you have left the UK, the worldwide basis, your liability for inheritance tax on your worldwide income will continue to apply for a period of years known as the tail. And the length of the tail that applies for you will depend on how long you were UK resident before you left the UK. The tail starts at 3 years if you have been a UK resident for between 10 and 13 of the previous 20 years before you left, and the tail increases to a maximum of 10 years if you were living in the UK for 20 years or more prior to moving abroad. So in other words, to keep this simple, if you have been living and working in the UK for all of your life, more than 20 years, and you decide to retire to another country, then after 10 years of living in that country, you will no longer be liable for inheritance tax to the UK. Let me know what your views are on these changes and if this has impacted your decision to leave the UK or not for your retirement or even before then. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Until next time, hwyl fawr am y tro.